So welcome everyone. I hope you can hear me and that the sound is properly and also the video. And maybe you can type in the chat that's on the right side of your screen if you can hear me right now. And I'm also curious, can you indicate in the chat if you want to, from which city, in which country you are going to attend to this webinar? Hi Zoe, welcome to this webinar. And Christian, also welcome. Hi Marnie, fine that you can hear me. And I see also someone from the Netherlands. Hi Lex, from Rotterdam, I think that's correct, right? We'll wait till about 4 o'clock and then we will start our webinar. Hi, I hope I pronounced it correctly. Ikoma, hello from Texas. Hi Dana. So I see a lot of people from the United States. One person from the Netherlands and also someone from the United States. So I'm curious if more people are coming to this webinar and where they're coming from. So if you want to, you can type in the chat from which city in which country you're going to attend this webinar. And then let's wait 2 more minutes and then we will start this webinar. I also see Guido from Germany, Katie from France, Andres from Luxembourg. So here are some people from Europe. Anna, living in Spain right now. Emily from Florida. Hello, Emily. Dana from Romania, welcome. And Kate from Philadelphia, also welcome. Now, I hope all you can hear me properly. I have a window open here, but I hope you don't hear any sounds of the streets. If so, type it in the chat and I will close my window. But for now, I think it's 2 minutes past 4. So let's start with this webinar about unlocking accessibility in e-learning with articulate storyline. So what I'll do is I'll leave the state Oh, I saw that there was no sound. So I hope you can hear me right now. Okay, let's start again. So what I'll do is I want to briefly introduce myself for the people who don't follow me on YouTube and LinkedIn. So now, my name is Mark Spermon. I'm a freelance e-learning developer from the Netherlands, and I'm working in this e-learning industry since 2006. And I'm specializing in developing e-learning courses and also advising companies on best e-learning practices, for instance, with learning management systems. I work as a freelance e-learning developer, and over the past 10 years, I've become very skilled in using articulated storyline to develop e-learning courses, and I've gathered a lot of knowledge and also techniques that I'm eager to share. And today, I'm here to pass on some of that expertise to you. And today, I'll be sharing tips and techniques on how to make e-learning more accessible using articulate storyline. So my aim is to help you improve your e-learning development skills to create more accessible content. Now, let's look which topics we'll cover in this e-learning, in this webinar today. So what we'll be covering is, the first topic is, what is accessibility exactly? We'll start by defining what accessibility is and why it should be a vital component of your e-learning process. And then we'll tackle the importance of accessibility. So why is accessibility so important and also necessary for creating accessible learning experience? Then we'll go to the accessibility standards. So we'll cover which standards there are, including guidelines. And then we'll go to the 4 core principles, which they are. I'll explain later on in this webinar. Now, after the 4 core principles, we'll dive into different levels of accessibility, helping you understand how to meet each of them effectively. Now, and before we open up Storyline, I'll provide you with some practical tips for designing your next e-learning course with accessibility in mind. Now, when we've done that, we can get our hands dirty in Storyline, and we explore how you can use Storyline built-in features to enhance the accessibility of your e-learning course. And after the practical stuff in Articulate Storyline, I have some tips for testing to ensure that they meet accessibility standards and also provide a good learning experience for all users. Now, and before we get to this webinar's question and answer section, I have a special offer to you to start your e-learning journey as a Storyline Pro today. So make sure you keep on board to the end of this webinar, and we'll wrap up this webinar with a Q&A session where you have the opportunity to ask questions and deepen your understanding about accessibility in e-learning. Now, but before we continue, I have a question for you, and you can answer it, as if I'm correct, at the right side of my screen. So you'll see the following answer. How many adults in the United Kingdom do you think have disabilities? Do you think? So I see one answer. So is it 1 in 2, 1 in 5, 1 in 10, or maybe 1 in 12? So give an answer, and I'll give you 30 seconds, and then I'll show you what the correct answer is. So a little bit more time. So what do you think? How many adults in the United Kingdom have disabilities? Are there 1 in 2, 1 in 5, 1 in 10, or maybe 1 in 12? So I hope everybody has given an answer. The correct answer is up to 1 in 5 people are adult people in the United Kingdom have some type of disability. And in the United States, the number is even higher, because in the United States, up to 1 in 4 adults have some type of disability. Now, with these statistics, how do you ensure that everyone can go through your e-learning course without any problems? And this is where e-learning accessibility comes into play. So let's continue to show what accessibility exactly is. So what is exactly accessibility? Now, regarding accessibility in e-learning, we're referring to the design and development of e-learning courses that everybody can use, regardless of their ability. So this means no matter a learning's physical, cognitive, or technical circumstance, they should be equal access to your e-learning course. In other words, accessibility in e-learning means using technology and standards to create e-learning courses that can be used by all learners regardless of their ability. It's about making sure that everyone, whether they're using assistive technology like screen readers, can fully participate in the e-learning experience. And keep this core definition in mind as we move through today's webinar. It's what guides us in designing and developing courses that are truly accessible for all learners. Now that we know what accessibility is, let's find out why it's so important. And for the importance, there are three main reasons. Now, the first reason why accessibility is so important is about inclusion. Accessibility ensures that learners with disabilities can fully participate in e-learning courses because everyone discerns the access to the same information. So that means that everyone can have access to the same information in the company if you create e-learning courses that are accessible. Now, the second reason why accessibility is important is about user experience, because accessibility enhances the overall user experience of your e-learning courses for all learners, so not only those with disabilities. And there's a third reason why accessibility is so important, and that has to do with legal. Many countries have legal frameworks, so as the Americans with Disability Act, the ADA. In the United Kingdom, you have the Equality Act, and Europe has the EAA, the European Accessibility Act. And what you see, and this is for name in the United States, that every year there are more accessible lawsuits filed in federal court. And the number of lawsuits filed in federal court in 2022 was 3,255. And this will be more and more each year. Now, in 2025, the European Accessibility Act will be fully in play. So I think then also in Europe, we will see lawsuits filed about accessibility. So therefore, it's important to make sure that your courses are fully accessible. And now we know why accessibility for e-learning is important. Let's see which accessibility features or standards there are. So let's have a look at the next web accessibility standards. Now, maybe you have heard of it, but the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also WCAG guidelines, developed by the World Wide Web Consortium, are the most crucial web accessibility standards to follow. Now, WCAG is a standard that provides a wide range of recommendations for making web content more accessible. Now we are at version 2.1. This is finalized and in play, and version 2.2 of the WCAG guidelines will be finalized later this year. And the WCAG guidelines are based on 4 key principles. The 4 principles. This means that content must be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. What this means, I'll show you in a minute. And there are 3 levels of conformance for the WCAG guidelines. You have single A, this is the lowest conformance level, a double A, the middle conformance level, and triple A, the highest conformance level. And these levels provide a gradient for organizations to understand and meet the accessibility requirements. Now let's dive a bit deeper in the 4 principles and what they mean. So we have the 4 principles. They form the foundation of the Web Accessibility Guidelines. And POUR stands for perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And here is what that means. So for instance, the first principle is perceivable. Information and user interface components must be presented to users in ways that they can perceive it. This means that users must be able to recognize them regardless of their limitations. And for this purpose, guidelines such as subtitles, audio descriptions, and alternate text must be provided in an accessible e-learning course. The second principle is operable. This principle indicates that all users must be able to operate the interface, which implies that that your e-learning course can't include interactions that some people can't perform, for instance, drag and drop options or drag and drop interactions. And a good and the most known example of accessible operability is keyboard navigation. The third principle is understandable, and this means information and the operation of a user interface must be understandable. Users must be able to understand the information and also the operation of the user interface. And the fourth and last principle is about robustness. So content must be robust enough to be important, reliable by various user agents, and also assistive technologies. So this means it has to be robust, so a screen reader can go through your course, but also, for instance, people do use Braille. Now, for each of these four principles, WCAG has variable success criteria that to determine compliance. Now, let's have a look at these three conformance levels. So the WCAG guidelines have three levels of conformance. We saw that earlier. So we have single A, mid-range, double A, and triple A, and each is progressively harder to meet. Now, web accessibility level single A. What are, for instance, some examples that fall under this to meet it? Now, for instance, non-text content, such as images and videos, must have a text equivalent. So that means an alt text for images, but also closed captions for videos. Users must be able to access content using only keyboard. So is it possible to go through your course only with a keyboard and not using a mouse? Forms must include labels or instructions, so users know what's expected of them. Now, assistive technologies such as screen readers must be able to access content, and information or instructions in your e-learning course must be conveyed through shape, size, or color alone. This must not be conveyed through shape, size, or color alone. So, for instance, if we have a true-false question, you cannot only give a color that the answer is incorrect or correct, but you have, for instance, an icon that is red and it is incorrect, but you also have the text next to it, it's incorrect. So people that are color blindness can see the text and also see that the question was incorrect that they answered. So the next level is a double A. Now here you have also the text and background must be have a good color contrast. For example, I have a minimum level of contrast for at least 4.5 to 1. I'll show you later on this webinar how you can check for your own e-learning courses if the contrast level is good enough. The content of your e-learning course should be organized under clear headings using a logical order. For instance, in H1 have the heading followed by H2 and H3. It is important for screen readers. And elements that affect navigation should be consistent across the whole site. So that means that you have a back and previous button, for instance, on the same place on your slide throughout your whole course. And then web accessibility level AAA, then you need a contrast ratio between text and a background at least 7 to 1. Pre-recorded video content must have a sign language translation. So this is harder to achieve. And you will also need extended audio description for pre-recorded videos. I have two remarks about web accessibility levels. And the first one is that the conformance at higher levels indicates that conformance at lower levels. So for example, if you conform to a AA conformance level in e-learning, this means that you both meet single A and AA conformance level. And the second remark, and I think this is fairly important, don't fixate on the highest level, so AAA, because AAA is great, but AA is more realistic. So what you heard earlier in the previous slide about, let's go back one slide, that you have pre-recorded video must contain a sign language translation. This can be really hard. So most companies go for a AA conformance level in their e-learning course. So one major tip, if you're going to start a new e-learning project, is design your course with accessibility in mind, because converting an existing e-learning module takes a lot of time and also money. And it's therefore smart to think about accessibility before developing a new e-learning course. So you don't achieve an accessible module just by getting a few settings right in Articulate Storyline. It also affects, for instance, the design of the module, the language that you use in your module. So yeah, there are multiple disciplines affected by your course. So the instructional designer has to do some things, the visual designer, but also you as an e-learning developer has a role in it to make sure that your course will be accessible for people. And now, if I want to talk about color contrast, so when we talk about contrast in the context of accessibility, what we mean by it, we mean the difference in brightness between two colors. Now, to describe these differences, we use ratios. So the contrast ratio between text and a text background in your e-learning course should be at least 4.5 to 1 if your font is 24 or 19 pixels bold. And if it's larger, the minimum drops to 3.1. Now, and it's important to ensure that there is enough contrast between text and background colors so learners can read the content easily. Low contrast, such as light gray text on white background, makes it challenging for people with visual impairments or certain types of color blindness to read text. Now, how can you check this in Articulate Storyline? What I've done, I've created some videos because I don't know if I go live to Articulate Storyline, if that's good enough for my connection. So for the Now I have two buttons here in Articulate Storyline, and now let's see how we can check the contrast ratio of these buttons. So what I will do, I'll have this button selected, go to the Format tab, go to Button Fill, and I'll copy this code. I'll go to the website of this website, and here you can check the contrast. So you have here the foreground color. Now we know this is white, so I'll type in FFFFF. It's white, and here I can type in my background color, and now you'll see for normal text it will fill, large text it will fill, and it will also fill. So this contrast is not right to match the WCAG standards. So now let's check the contrast of the other button in Articulate Storyline. So I'll select this button, go here and check, select this color code. I'll go to my website again here. So now the foreground color is the same. I'll paste my background color, and now you'll see it will pass here for the AA standard for normal text, for large text, and also for graphical objects in the user interface. So the white on this purple background has the correct color ratio. So this is how you can check your color contrast in Articulate Storyline with, for instance, the WebAM website. But also text has influence on accessibility. So for instance, in a storyboard phase, you can take these things to account. So make sure that the purpose of your text is clear. So most people only read a few words or sentences of content, and then they decide that the content is for them. So make sure that the purpose of the text is clear enough to engage users and make the information more accessible. What you also must do is remove extra words, because there's the without meaning words without any meaning. It's better to extract them. And you also don't want to use issues or jargon or idioms, because some people don't understand it. So how the simplify the words is also better for accessibility. Sometimes you can avoid complex healthcare terms or other terms. So don't use abbreviations, but write out the whole word. So this is also better. And what you also have to do is organize your text with headings. Headings outline information for easier skimming, but it's also better for screen readers. And you also want to use an active voice. Active voice is clearer, more direct, and also easier to translate. And so this is better for your script. Now let's dive into Articulate Storyline and see which features there are. Now I want to start with the player accessibility settings that there are in Articulate Storyline. So Storyline has some great accessibility features in the player you should know of. So here, if you go to your Home tab and click on Player, now the player window will open. And what we see at first here is under Player Controls. If you see here a gear icon, and these are the accessibility controls. So for instance here, the keyboard shortcuts are enabled. In a little while I will show you what these keyboard shortcuts are. But also you can, for instance, enable background audio, but a user can also disable it with this accessibility controls enabled. It can choose for accessible text and zoom to fit. Now, what you also see here is, for instance, the closed captions with videos. But for a user, you can also add playback speed. So user can decide on what playback speed he wants. For instance, plays a video on in Articulate Storyline. Now, it's so normal, but I can play it a little bit slower or speed it up. And let's click this one. You have also the option for full screen, so that you can show your course in full screen. And under colors and effects, there are also some other accessibility features. For instance, here the accessibility focus colors. You can change these focus colors, but now they have the right contrast ratio. And this is for tapping through your course. So these are some accessibility features that are standard in the Storyline Modern Player. It's good to think of which features you should enable for your users, but it's best to enable as much of the features that the users can use them to go through your course without any problems. Now let's go to the next step, and there are keyboard shortcuts. And not a lot of people are aware that there are standard keyboard shortcuts available in Articulate Storyline for people who can't use a mouse, for instance, to go through the course. So Articulate Storyline's Modern Player offers a range of keyboard shortcuts that significantly enhance the accessibility and streamline navigation experience for learners. Now, by leveraging these shortcuts, you can empower users to interact with your e-learning course more efficiently and effectively. But not a lot of people are aware of these shortcuts. Now, you can press the list of shortcuts by pressing the Shift key and the question mark button on your keyboard. Now, providing these keyboard shortcuts in your e-learning course makes them more accessible to users with mobility impairments or those who rely on assistive technologies, and therefore it's wise to name the option for pressing Shift and the question mark key for the overview of the keyboard shortcuts. Now you can access this list throughout your whole course. Now, what I've done here on the first slide of this dummy course, I added a text where it states press Shift plus the question mark button to access the list of keyboard shortcuts to navigate the course. Now, maybe you think people who are blind cannot see this, but you can choose that this text will be read with a screen reader, so they also aware of that they can press Shift and the question mark button to see the list of keyboard shortcuts. So these were the keyboard shortcuts in Articulate Storyline. And with these keyboard shortcuts, users that cannot use a mouse can go through your e-learning course with only a keyboard. The next feature in Articulate Storyline that you should use is the focus order. And with the focus order, you order the objects on your slides in which screen reader focuses on them. So focus order is a very powerful feature in Articulate Storyline that allows you to control the sequence in which interactive and text elements receive focus when using the keyboard to navigate through your e-learning content. Now, by fine-tuning the focus order, you can optimize the accessibility and also user experience for learners who rely on keyboard navigation or assistive technologies. Now let's explore how we can use the focus order option in Articulate Storyline. Now, to access the focus order, go to your Home tab and click on Focus Order, and you'll see now that the focus order window will open. Now, the first thing that you now see, and what's very important, is that you give a proper name to all the objects on your slides, because now you see on the slide master picture 2 and picture 3. We don't know what these are. You see here title only, picture 1. We have no ID, and that's the same for vector 2 and vector 3. Now, I know now that picture 2 and picture 3 are visual elements and don't add anything for screen reader users. So we will delete them from the focus order. I can do this on two ways. For instance, create a custom focus order and click on delete. But because this is a slide master element, I cannot delete it. So all I'll do is I'll cancel it here, go to view. I'll go to my slide master, and you see here on the slide master picture 2 and picture 3. So what I'll do now is open the size and position window, and here under accessibility I can uncheck this object, and it's now not visible in the focus order anymore. And the same I can do it for the gradient. So let's close our master view, go back to the slide and open the focus order again, and you'll see that the items now are removed from the focus order. Now you see here title only. Now this needs an alternate text, and in a while let's show you how you can add alternate text to elements in your Storyline course. Now you see here untitled slide picture 1, and this needs also an alternate text. And what you now can do is, for instance, create a custom focus order. I want the text here for the keyboard shortcuts that the screen reader reads it at first when a user visits this slide. So I can move this to the top. What I also can do is, for instance, remove this vector here because it's a visual component. It has no value for the screen reader, so I can delete it. I can also delete this one. And what I now can do here, for instance, because June 29, 2023 doesn't say anything, I can say date webinar and then June 29, 2023. And the same I can do for the time. I can say time webinar and 1600 hours CST. So now you give a lot more information that the screen reader can read. So it's better understandable for people who use a screen reader. People who don't use a screen reader and can see the normal slide, see the icon with the time and see the clock with see the icon with the date and the clock with the time. So now let's save it, and now we'll change this focus order. So this was about focus order. Now, I think focus order is really important, and you must create a custom focus order for each slide in your course to ensure the right focus order in for screen readers, for instance. And the next thing that I want to show you, and that's very important, are text styles and headings, because that gives screen readers a better understanding of the text in your course. You want to use text styles in Storyline 360 to make content easy to navigate for users with a screen reader. Now, styles identify text elements as headings, hyperlinks, block quotes, or paragraphs. And Storyline 360 publishes those details as semantic formatting in the source code of your course. Then screen readers announce the text and its semantic formatting to paint a mental picture of the content that is sighted users get by looking at the screen. For example, in this screen here, you'll see this is about laptops. Now, you see here the title is about laptops, but a screen reader user hears only laptops and has no context. So to give them context, what you can do in Articulate Storyline is apply a text style to your text. So you see here I have the heading laptops on this slide, and you see here there are text styles, and I have applied heading 1 to this text. And this means that a user hears, when a screen reader reads it, it reads heading 1 laptops. So it gives them proper context. Now, besides heading 1, there are other different headings. You have a heading for, you have a text style for normal text, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, and also for hyperlinks. So now I recommend that you attach the text styles for all the text elements in your course. So it's good for screen readers, but also good for if you want to change something, for instance, colors or font type, because if you change something, for instance, for the header 1 on this slide, you can apply it immediately for all the other headers on all the other slides in your course. So it saves you a lot of time. And now you know how you can use the text styles and headings. Let's see how you can add alt text in Articulate Storyline for descriptive images. So not all images need an alt text, but descriptive and informative images need alt text. Now let's see how we can add alt text to images in Articulate Storyline. Now you must add alt text to descriptive and informative images in Storyline. Images that are only visual, you can delete it out of your focus order and they don't need an alt text. Now, assume this image of a laptop is a descriptive and informative image. So what I'll do is I'll open the size and position window, and under the accessibility tab, you see now here the alternate text. Now, this alternate text doesn't say anything to a screen reader user, so we can delete this and type in our own alt text here. Now, what's important to remember if you're going to type an alt text is that you not include picture of or image of, because a screen reader sees this image as an image and will automatically read image of, and otherwise it will be there twice. So, and what's also important is that you use correct grammar. So capitalize the first letter and end whole sentences with a period, and be descriptive as possible. So for instance, for this one, I type in a half open laptop showing a Windows home screen, assuming this is the home screen. So now we have the alt text here. Click on close, and if we go now, for instance, here to the focus order, you see here that this image has now an alternate text that can be read by a screen reader. So now we know how we can add alt text, but also is very important for the accessibility of your e-learning course is provide a text variant for videos, and that you can do with closed captions, but also with a video transcript. So, and I'll show you now how you can do this in Articulate Storyline. So closed captions and video transcripts are a good way for people who are deaf or have hearing disabilities to consume your course. So I have here a video from myself in Articulate Storyline, and if I go here to the options panel in my from my video, I can click on edit captions. Now my captions window will open, and here I can type in my captions. Now, there are already some captions, but what I also can do is go to import, and if you have an SRT file, I click on the SRT file, I'll open it, and Articulate Storyline automatically adds the closed captions to your video, and from the closed captions they can also generate video transcripts. Therefore we have to enable the player of the video. So here under video controls, instead of show none, I'll select, for instance, dark, and see that there is here a video right now. So let's see how this looks like when we preview this slide. So now when we preview this slide, you see here that here are my closed captions. Like I can also add a video transcript, and you see here that there is now a video transcript, and the closed captions and the video transcript can be read out by screen readers. So it's important that you have the accessibility controls enabled, so a user can see the closed captions and also the transcript in Articulate Storyline. So this was about video closed captions and how you can provide a text variant for your videos. The last thing in Articulate Storyline that I want to show you is about dialogue layers and about accessibility of layers and how you can use them in Articulate Storyline. Now, not only for question layers in Articulate Storyline, but for all slide layers, you have two options how you can show them. You can show them as a standard layer or a dialogue layer. Now, if you go here, for instance, to my correct layer, and I click on the property icon, you see here behavior, present as, and this is a normal layer. But what I also can do is present as a dialogue layer, and now I can give it a label, for instance, correct, and also a description. That's correct, you selected this. Now, the advantage for choosing a dialogue layer is that a user cannot interact outside this layer. So it's better for screen readers, and the label and the description will be read out by screen readers. Now, when do you choose a normal layer or a dialogue layer? Now, if you need to display additional content, for instance, in branched scenarios or complex interactions, then you could use standard layers. If you have another option, for instance, by questions, it's possibly better to choose for a dialogue layer because it works better with screen readers. Now, there's one other thing I want to show you for layers. Let's go to my View tab here and go to the Feedback Master. And you see here that Storyline has the option Insert Accessible Feedback Master. Now, if we add the Accessible Feedback Master to the group, to our project, Storyline has now a Feedback Master that has all the accessibility elements that are needed, but also in the proper contrast ratio. So the green and the white, but also the text color on white are in the correct contrast ratios. So this is something you can add to your project for a better accessibility. Now, these were the dialogue layers and accessibility layers. I want to tell you something about the interactions in our articulate storyline that you want to avoid if you want to create an accessible e-learning course. Sliders, dials, their normal quiz questions are also accessible, so this is no problem. But you have to want to avoid, for instance, drag and drops, some hotspots, and also hovers and reveals. I want to show you an example of a hotspot, of a drag and drop question. For instance, this one is what goes where in the fridge. So here you have to drag one of the foods to the proper level in the fridge. This is something for people that are visually impaired is difficult to do. So this is something you want to avoid. This is the same also for some hotspot questions. If people have to pick, for instance, an area where there is a hazard or something. So that are stuff that you want to avoid in your e-learning course. And also hovers. It's best to make all things click, because a click, you can do it with your keyboard and then you can click it away. So no hovers in an accessible e-learning course. And then about testing your course. Now, what you want to do is test always with a screen reader. Now, there are two popular screen readers. You have JAWS, but there's a paid one. You have also NVDA. This is a popular free screen reader. You can install it, and with this screen reader, you can go through your published course and see if everything is correct and also correct in your course. What you also want to do, but maybe a visual designer has done it, is check for visual contrast issues. So measure the contrast of stuff in your course. I see that Dina says that they can't hear me. Are there some other people's? Okay, I'm back again. Okay. We had it about testing your course, and that you want to check for visual contrast issues. That's very important. And the last tip is that you don't want to. Yes, Dina, the screen readers, there are two. You have two, JAWS, but that's a paid one, and NVDA, that's a free one. So it's NVDA. And that's a free one, and you can install it and go through your course with it and see how everything is read out loud and if everything is correct. And the last tip is don't test in the preview mode. Publish your course, publish it, for instance, to Articulate Review, and test it there, because that is also how your end user will see your course. So that's the best way to test your course. And before we get to the question and answer session of this webinar, I have a short special offer for you, and a 30% off the coupon of my online course about Articulate Storyline with the coupon Power of 3. And you can see this about at the end of the webinar. I have a link to my page. So now, we covered a lot of ground in this webinar. And it's time for the question and answer session. So do you have any questions about accessibility in Articulate Storyline? You can type your questions in the chat box and I'll do my best to answer them. And if there are any questions that we can't get due, for instance, to time constraints, if I have to seek something out, I'll follow up after this session. Alex says, no, 360 interactions are not fully accessible at this moment in Articulate Storyline. So that is something to take care of. Why is a dialogue better than a layer? The one thing is not better than the other, but is for how you use it. If you create a layer and set it as a dialogue, a user cannot click outside of this layer, so it's better for the screen reader. But if you use a layer for instance, a short pop-up text, or in a branching scenario, then you could use a normal layer. Hotspots on a 360 image. Yeah, what I earlier said, 360 interactions are not fully accessible at the moment. So this is also for hotspots. Amy has a question. What do you think is the biggest and most common accessibility mistake made in Articulate Storyline? Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, the biggest or the most common mistake is that people think that if they build a course, at the end, they can do some stuff and make it accessible. But what I told earlier in this webinar, accessibility is not only checking some setting stuff in Articulate Storyline. Accessibility is in script writing phase and also in, for instance, the visual design phase. So it's a team effort to make an accessible course. So with the instructional designer, visual designer, and also with the e-learning developer. So yeah, make sure that you keep accessible in mind when you are starting your e-learning course, and not do it short before delivering your course. Kristen has also a question. You mentioned that you could use built-in feedback layers that are accessible. Will it default to black and white like your example, or will it use your custom colors for the course? No, it has the default colors from Storyline right now, because Storyline knows they have the proper contrast ratio. If you want your own custom colors, yeah, you can do it, but you have to check if they have the proper contrast ratio. And do you know about the new display transcript feature in Storyline? Robbie, can you maybe explain your question a little bit, your transcripts feature? Do you... Well, I haven't seen this webinar yesterday, but Guido checks the link. So I think it was the transcripts. I think it was the transcripts that I showed you in the video. So the transcripts at the right side of your screen. Are there any more questions? If there are not any questions anymore, what I will do is thanks for attending my webinar today, and I'll have some key takeaways. So accessibility is important for all learners and not only learners with a disability. And the principles of web accessibility are closely aligned with best web design practices. And every user benefits when content is easy to perceive, understand, and operate. Now, and what I said, also answering this question, design with accessibility in mind from the beginning. It takes far more time to make an existing module accessibility proof later. And I use the accessibility features in articulate storyline, such as focus order, text styles, closed caption, and the alt text for images. And testing is very important, but that is just like a regular course. Always test your course accessibility with multiple tools and methods, and don't forget to test with a screen reader software, for instance, NVDA. Now, and creating accessible e-learning is more than a legal requirement. It's about ensuring that all learners, regardless of their abilities, have equal opportunities to learn and grow. Now, thanks for attending to this webinar. Now, there is a recording available. I will put it on my YouTube channel. So I hope tomorrow and otherwise on Monday, this recording will be available on my YouTube channel and you can watch it again. And if you have any questions, place a comment under the video and I'll be happy to answer it. Now, thanks for your time. Have a nice day. And if you have any questions about articulate storyline, accessibility, or other ways, let me know.